And I didn't notice this as much when I was in the studio as when I was watching it on camera. The intense hatred in his face looked like he was suppressing far more than he actually said.
Piers, if you're watching this, you know, and I know, that you said that. And I have it recorded.
Next, in the war between Israel and Hamas.
The death toll in Gaza is now more than 25,000.
Israel-Gaza war.
Israel-Gaza war.
Civilians in Gaza have been struggling to survive.
From all the mainstream media outlets covering the situation in Gaza, one show took a different approach.
I'm Piers Morgan Uncensored. Welcome to my fearless new forum for ferocious debate, fabulous people, and yes, free speech.
What made Piers Morgan stand out was the fact that he seemingly had a more fair approach, being that he would frequently have the opposing sides on to share their views, and would even host debates between the opposing sides live.
As I said before, and I'll say it again, justice is a prerequisite for peace. The apartheid laws of South Africa are the same as the apartheid laws of Israel.
He often tries to keep himself positioned in the middle of a debate and constantly affirms the idea that he does not get anything from this.
I don't have a horse in this race.
Through this, he has racked up millions of views and brought a lot of attention to the topic. However, the topic also brought a lot of attention to him, maybe more than he had hoped for. Because over time, Piers Morgan's true colors began to show. People began realizing that Piers Morgan treats his Muslim and pro-Palestinian guests differently than his other guests.
Do you though?
Yeah, I do.
Dilly?
No,
or do you watch the odd little clip on social media that's been taken out of context and then you say, boycott this guy?
And that becomes especially clear when you watch his interviews on the topic. 4 interviews in specific. Muhammad Hijab, Lowkey, Dr. Abdul Wahid, and Dilly Hussein, who actually has a history with Piers. But we'll get back to that point soon. The first interview took place on October 16th, 2023, and featured Muhammad Hijab, who was more than ready to call Piers out, immediately noting how Piers introduced him differently than how he introduced the previous guest, who was an Israeli ambassador.
So you introduced me as a Palestinian controversial...
I actually corrected myself.
Why did the word controversial come into play?
I think you're controversial.
So are you.
I wouldn't deny
So is the
that.
ambassador. Why didn't you introduce her in that manner?
This entire interview really set the stage and stood out to viewers because Muhammad Hijab gave Piers Morgan something that he was not ready for. A taste of his own medicine.
Piers Morgan tries to bully people, so what you need against a bully is a bigger
British journalists are not an academic authority. You know that full well. You've been fired from Daily Mirror for that very purpose. This is a red herring because already 1,023 children have been killed in Gaza. It happens every day in Palestine.
No.
So why do you care about that
It
one
actually
so much?
doesn't. It doesn't.
It does actually,
No.
yes.
Go-
Cast-led,
Wait a minute,
protective
Mohammed.
edge. When it's Russell Brand, you don't
There's
have
no
to rape him.
comparison between Russell Brand and what's happened
It's the
here.
same thing. It's a rape allegation. Why are you stuttering?
Muhammad Hijab articulated his arguments well, held his composure, and by the end of the debate, the viewers' decision was unanimous. Following the interview with Muhammad Hijab and a subsequent interview with Bassem Youssef the next day, Palestinian voices were loud and clear, many of them holding Piers accountable for his double standards and his unfair interviews. One of those people being Lowkey.
British Iraqi rapper and pro-Palestine activist Kareem Dennis, better known as Lowkey, has been a powerful and influential pro-Palestinian voice before and during this conflict.
On October 24, Piers held an interview with Lowkey, perhaps in an attempt to appear more friendly to the Palestinian cause, being that he spent a large portion of the discussion defending himself.
I completely agree with you about the plight of the Palestinian people. I have said that it is absolutely appalling the number of children who are dying in Gaza. It's appalling. I can absolutely express my horror at the deaths of Palestinian innocent civilians, as I have done many times over the years. I think it's horrifying.
But at some point in the interview, it seems like something doesn't sit right with Piers, almost as if he can't be the bad guy here. And eventually, Piers starts using his normal journalist tactics, taking the offensive with Lowkey and trying to put him in the spotlight.
Those whose instinctive reaction was not to feel that, and I think you're one of them, because your reaction was to say the arrogance to think you could keep 2 million people trapped in an open-air prison indefinitely, as if somehow that justified what happened that day. You're entitled to your opinion of me, of David Petraeus, of Mark Regev, but I'm also entitled to judge you.
But unfortunately for Piers, Lowkey is also a highly experienced journalist and knows exactly what Piers is up to.
Piers, you know exactly what you're doing.
And you haven't.
This is not journalism. The idea of us comparing our moral compasses and somehow I have a deficient moral compass. Somehow I am a moral monster.
That.
You know what's true? You know what's true is I am not. The people that have shown a cold indifference to the ethnically cleansed Palestinians, dispossessed, 1 in 3 every refugee in the world is Palestinian. They are the largest refugee population. Those who have turned a blind eye to their suffering are those that need to be seriously interrogated about their moral compass.
Lowkey expertly puts Piers back in the defensive, and before the interview could end, Lowkey delivers the decisive blow.
This badge, zoom in on this badge. This badge was given to me by an employee of this building who said they were told they could not wear this badge because it was the Palestinian flag.
Yes, this is actually the same pin that Mohammed Hijab was wearing in his interview a week prior. As if the same employee handed it to him with the same message, that his employers prohibited him from wearing it to work. And once again, after Lowkey's interview was done, the viewer's decision was unanimous. At this point, Piers Morgan was receiving a lot of backlash online. With this criticism and the amount of views he was getting from these interviews, Piers continued to have many people on his show to defend the pro-Palestinian cause, even including Andrew Tate, Bassem Youssef for a second time, Norman Finkelstein, and Dr. Gabor Mate. But still, Piers seemingly refuses to condemn Israel for their constant violations of international law, including unaliving thousands of innocent men, women, and children. At this point, Piers Morgan began sounding like a broken record. He kept asking the same questions and interrogating anybody who didn't answer in a way that Piers was satisfied with.
Because you won't answer my question. Answer my question. Should Hamas stay in power? Should Hamas stay in power? This country says they're a terror group. Are they a terror group? What do you think of what Hamas did on October the 7th? Do you believe Hamas are a terror organisation? But they're not a terror group.
I think they're going to retaliate.
They're not a terror group.
One team's terrorists is another.
Okay, we're now up to about 8. Are they a terror group?
But out of all the interrogative interviews that Piers conducted, none of them compared to his interview with Dr. Abdul Wahid. I mean, just look at the title.
My question for you is simply, do you support the chanting of jihad? Do you think what happened October the 7th was a terror attack?
It's a
Did you say no?
It's a resistance.
Not a terror attack.
What many of us saw on that day were videos coming out showing people saying, we will not harm women, we will not harm children.
Do me a favour.
No.
How did you feel going into the interview? And were you kind of blindsided by his change in direction?
I knew I was going into a hostile and challenging environment. I don't think I was blindsided. I don't think I'd seen any of his interviews which were remotely as hostile as that. And I didn't notice this as much when I was in the studio as when I was watching it on camera afterwards. The intense, I would say, hatred in his face looked like he was suppressing far more than he actually said.
When gay people come to your practice, do you treat them?
Oh, of course.
Why?
Because I treat all my patients with kindness and without
Do you tell
discrimination.
them you think what they do is a sin?
What an absurd thing to say.
Why wouldn't you
Why would I
about
say
that?
that? Why I think professional integrity is treating the people I treat with respect and with kindness.
How do I know
and with
you
fairness.
do? You want full Sharia law for this country?
System.
Who pays your salary? Would you like Sharia law here?
If Sharia law means upholding family values, means looking after the poor.
Means no gays, no feminists, i.e. women who get above themselves,
that's your
right?
caricature. No, that's your
I know what Sharia law wants.
Why do so many women become Muslim these days? Why do
Because they
so
want to
many
be
women in the
oppressed.
West?
Is that what you're going to tell me?
No. Why do so many Muslims...
Because they want to be oppressed.
And on top of all of that, at the end of that hostile interrogation, Piers says this.
You've been enlightening with your responses. You may not realise quite how enlightening, but you might find out when you see the reaction.
But the one who really found out was Piers Morgan. The people did not like the way Piers Morgan conducted himself, especially with his Muslim guests. And it's very likely that Piers and his producers realized how greatly he messed up because of what Dr. Abdul Wahid told me in an interview.
They came back to me 3 days later after the show and said, our editor is wondering whether or not you'd like to come on for a less confrontational interview.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And I laughed and I said, I don't think that would be hard to get a less confrontational interview.
In the face of all this backlash, there was one clip in particular that really made people angry. Remember when Piers said this?
Why do so many women become Muslim these days? Why do
Because they
so
want to
many
be
women in the
oppressed.
West?
Is that what you're going to tell me?
No. Why do so many Muslims...
Because they want to be oppressed.
This Islamophobic comment caused many people to begin calling for the boycott of Piers Morgan Uncensored, to the point where Piers felt that he should address this himself.
Well, now, should you boycott Piers Morgan? That's me, of course. A number of people seem to think so online. The hashtag's been trending all week, pushed by several high-profile Muslims and pro-Palestinian accounts.
And to do this, he brought on no other than Dilly Hussein. And unfortunately for Piers, just like Lowkey, Dilly Hussein's also an experienced journalist, and he knows exactly what he's doing.
So why didn't Mohammed Hijab get that same treatment, Lowkey get that same treatment? I have actually watched certain episodes that on average you interrupt your Muslim guests 21.3 seconds. I believe you're an Islamophobe and a genocide enabler for not using the correct term to describe Israel's indiscriminate genocide. I firmly echo the sentiments of the 91% of 13,550 people polled that believe you're an Islamophobe. I'm a journalist. I've authenticated the videos. I've seen the videos. But show me the proof.
They were literally burned alive in homes.
Okay, where's the proof?
People were beheaded.
Proof.
Babies were killed.
Name me one child. One child was beheaded. Name me one child that was beheaded. And I will mourn and condemn with you.
I just said people were beheaded. The real reason you want me boycotted is I'm telling the truth.
I do watch it here and there.
Yeah, but do you though?
Yeah, I do.
Dilly? Or do you watch the odd little clip on social media that's been taken out of context and then you say, boycott this guy?
Now, some might watch this altercation and wonder, why is there so much anger and animosity coming from Piers Morgan? You might be inclined to believe that Piers Morgan's just upset because people calling for his boycott and all the hate that he's getting. But what if I told you this is not the first time Dilly Hussein and Piers Morgan went head to head, but rather they have a history that goes back a couple of years?
It's not inciting violence or hatred.
Isn't it?
No.
Isn't it inciting people to think these people are bad, wrong people?
No, not so.
Really? You said that straight face?
Yeah, absolutely. Do we not live in a society where we ardently disagree on so many major issues about man, life and universe? Do we not? Does that necessarily mean that we hate the people that we disagree with? Of course not.
Yeah, so basically me and Piers, we have history. The first time we engaged each other was March 2019. We ended up at Piers's show, which at the time was Good Morning Britain. I know him since 2019, stayed in basic communication. In 2021, we fell out. He was an ardent opponent of the wife of Prince Harry. And the backstory was that he first met Meghan and then he met her again at a massive function. And she kind of gave him the cold shoulder, like she wasn't interested in saying hello to Piers. And some said that vendetta started from there. His ego, his narcissistic ego was affected. So I went on Twitter and I said, look, Piers, don't behave like this. If there's truth in this, that's creepy colonial-like vibes you give there. That just because she blanked you at a gathering, you expected some kind of treatment. It gives you very creepy vibes, yeah? You know what I mean? It's weird, don't do it. And then he blocked me.
And I understand that you don't like Meghan Markle. You've made it so clear a number of times on this programme. A number of times, and I understand that you've got a personal relationship or had one and she cut you off. She's entitled to cut you off if she wants to. Has she said anything about you since she cut you off? I don't think she has, but yet you continue to trash her.
Okay, I'm done with this.
No.
Sorry, no. Sorry.
Do you know what? That's pathetic.
You can trash me, maybe not my own.
No.
See you later.
I'm being...
Sorry, can't do this.
This is absolutely diabolical behaviour. Piers spouts off on a regular basis, and we all have to sit there and listen. 6:30 to 7 o'clock yesterday was incredibly hard to watch.
So that's the backstory. As for now, Palestine and Gaza, Rami. We know Piers did this for the views. He's not dumb. He did this for the views. He did this for the clicks. He did it for engagement, and he did not hide that. How is Piers any different to any other non-Muslim media outlet that ultimately their metric for what is a good show or a bad show or a program or content is essentially views, clicks, comments, engagements, and how that can be monetized? I didn't go for to have a deep conversation because I know the guy wouldn't give me that opportunity. I went there for a to and fro and to give it to him a little bit without necessarily having a deep, in-depth conversation about the occupations. It wasn't that. By that time, he's already had 2 months to do that. And he didn't.
It's a crime. You may not think so.
When did you become the law enforcement agency of the United Kingdom?
I'm sorry. I'm not the law enforcement agency.
You're a journalist.
It is a criminal...
CPS.
The whole Islamabad thing, because I remember on the actual show, he had mentioned that he will look into it and then give like a full response.
You said, why are they behaving like it's Islamabad?
Okay, look, I don't remember us doing that, but I'll go and check it and I'll give you a response when I've checked it.
Did that ever happen?
No, he didn't. No, he didn't get. But and obviously he was occupied because my interview with him was Thursday. The next day, Yom al-Jum'ah, a High Court judge in London found Piers Morgan to be fully aware, whilst being the editor of the Daily Mirror, of having knowledge of journalists who are working under him and answerable to him, to be knowing that they were involved in phone hacking, which is illegal and there could be criminal prosecutions. He said to me off camera with a straight face that he does not believe in the right of Palestinians to resist. Yet he condemns Israel for illegal occupation. He condemns Israel for what is increasingly becoming a disproportionate response. He condemns Israel for the illegal settlements. He condemns Israel for it, but he does not believe in the Palestinians' right to defend themselves, Yani.
He told you that to your face?
As Allah is my witness, Piers, if you're watching this, you know, and I know, that you said that. And I have it recorded. He does not believe in the right of a Palestinian child to pick up a rock, knowing that a bulldozer is going to knock his family home down, to throw a rock at a tank. He believes that to be nearing an act of terrorism because he equates resistance with terrorism.
Once understanding all this information, it becomes fairly clear that there is much more to Piers Morgan than just a journalist conducting interviews and seeking truth. And Dilly's personal experience with Piers Morgan could play a crucial role in understanding who he is and what went into all these interviews. Both Dr. Abdul Wahid and Dilly Hussein gave amazing insight, and their full interviews could be found in this video. I urge everyone to watch it to uncover more about behind the scenes and to understand the Muslim community's views on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, and leave a comment below letting us know what you think about Piers Morgan.